A new documentary surrounding the life of Anthony Bourdain from his early years as a chef all the way up until his unfortunate death is now going to be hitting theaters this weekend, but is it going to be worth your time? Let's answer that and so much more in my review. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're diving into the new documentary Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain. A huge thank you to Focus Features for giving me the chance to view this early for review. It's directed by Neville, who also directed Won't You Be My Neighbor, one film I probably should go and watch. But again, this documentary is all about Anthony Bourdain's life, and there are some really incredibly breathtaking moments here, and there are also some really heavy moments because, as we all know, Anthony Bourdain unfortunately committed suicide back in 2018. So I have it in the description below, but it is the website for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, and I do have the suicide prevention hotline number in the description below as well. So guys, this is going to be one documentary that could be triggering for some, but there were some really good takeaways and some things that held it back from being great. But before we get into that, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I dive into movies and TV like this all the time, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell so you'll be the first in the comments for reactions, reviews, and so much more, because this summer's been very busy and the fall is going to be even crazier. Also, hit the big thumbs up button if you were a fan of Anthony Bourdain, and get loud in the comments below. And then when you see this documentary, did you like it? Did you not? Let's have a conversation about it. Alrighty, y'all, so let's get right into the documentary. And right off the bat, I have to say, I remember exactly where I was when Anthony Bourdain's news of his death came across my eyes. I was working at a local news station here, and we got that report from AP, the Associated Press, very early on. Like, I didn't even see it on TV for CNN or anything yet. We didn't even break into it as a station yet. So when I saw that, I literally froze for 2 seconds and thought, oh my gosh, this is real? And then when it processed in my mind that it was real, I still froze. I couldn't write the article up. I couldn't actually send it to the news desk, but man, it was such a tragic moment. However, this documentary starts off with the early moments of his life, where we do learn about his first job, first restaurant, getting into being a chef, and it actually is pretty enlightening in a way. And we learn about his memoir as well. And that's the one thing I do love about this documentary, honestly, is that in that first half, there's this intimate, very personal feel to it that worked for me. It compelled me. And honestly, I knew about Anthony Bourdain, the travel host, going around the world and eating and experiencing things I might not ever get the chance to experience, and that's all on full display. Trust me, this documentary looks and sounds beautiful. But when they pair all of that with some archival footage and footage that seems shot and used for this documentary, I was incredibly captivated. I got to learn more about Anthony Bourdain as a person thanks to this documentary, so there were some things here that I had no clue about, but this documentary educated me on. And when using all of the footage they used in those voiceovers, it's almost eerie to see how it fits so many years later. And sticking with that first half, you guys, director Neville really finds this pace that works very well, and honestly, I could not take my eyes off the screen. I love the storytelling structure here, and I loved feeling like I was in the room with Anthony Bourdain back in the 90s and early 2000s. All of this was coupled with some great editing, and then when you hear Anthony Bourdain's narration, and you bring in his partners and his friends, and they start to give their testimony about these very specific situations and stories of his life, it is very digestible, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is something that is really just hooking me right now. They even use classic films like Apocalypse Now to help tell Anthony Bourdain's story, and one moment in particular when they go to Congo is when Anthony Bourdain starts to reflect on what he's seeing, and it reminds him so much of Apocalypse Now. Now, they use a lot of different classic films, but this one in particular stuck out to me because it helped express exactly how Anthony Bourdain views the world. He views it as a film. He even expresses that at one point in the documentary, that he likes the illusion of film and he wants that for his own life. There's also an incredible sense of detail here, even down to the soundtrack. During one scene very early on in the documentary, we start to see Anthony Bourdain find his legs underneath him as being a TV host. See, he was a little shy at first, but when he breaks into that, there's this song that's used, Reborn, from the Hereditary soundtrack, another incredibly unsettling film, but this is oddly enough very fitting because the title, Reborn, it's almost like Anthony Bourdain was reborn. He found a new sense of purpose for his life at that particular moment. There are a lot of scenes like this, guys, where the music is used to tell the bigger picture in the documentary, and it's better for it. And of course, all roads were eventually leading to Anthony Bourdain's unfortunate death, and it gets very dark in the second half. If you're a fan of Anthony Bourdain, I can honestly say that this documentary will shake you. It made me even pause a couple of times, rewind, because processing all of the information and then jumping from scene to scene in that second half, it was a lot, you know. It almost felt overwhelming, and it was incredibly powerful to witness what we were watching on screen, and then coupling that with the testimonies of those in his inner circle. Yeah, it was a lot. It was just tough to stomach that downward spiral of his life at the end. And man, yes, they do put a good emphasis on mental health and different methods like therapy, and they do a good job at trying to destigmatize that, especially in the final 30 minutes. But boy, if you're in a movie theater and you don't have the luxury to pause this and take a breath, I can only imagine the impact it'll have on you versus me, where I had that luxury of pausing it and trying to think, okay, time out. Oof, I gotta process everything I just listened to and heard. And for all the good that this documentary does, Roadrunner does have a very weak second half. Now, this is exactly the start of my issues with this documentary from a technical standpoint. I think the material also kind of goes in a weird direction, and we'll talk about that soon, but more so on the technical side of things. I almost didn't really like the editing in that second half. All of the personal feelings I had in that first half, in the first probably 45 minutes to 50 minutes, I felt, boy, I was so attached to this documentary, and then things started to get a little muddled in the second half. And I really do think that's because the documentary begins to linger on the what ifs and why Anthony Bourdain committed suicide. I really didn't like that the documentary started to try to find a scapegoat almost for his suicide, and they, or I should say his friends, some of them at least, were picking out, from what it sounded like, his ex-girlfriend, Aja Argento, and that to me should not have been the focus. I do think that the directing there might have been a little flawed. I feel like it would have been stronger to just focus on the what and how it made his friends and family feel. But instead, the documentary tries to solve the mystery of why he committed suicide, and that doesn't work for me. And outside of that technical and storytelling flaw, guys, I did feel even disconnected with the documentary at the end, which is weird because in that first half, like I said, there was this intimate feel and approach to this documentary where I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. But again, I do think it's because this documentary has this overbearing focus on the why to Anthony's death. It does feel like it bogs down the documentary itself, and honestly, at the end, things were being drawn out a little too much. I don't know necessarily if this documentary needed to be almost 2 hours. I almost feel like it could have been cleaner if you cut off some of that at the end. The testimonies were powerful, don't get me wrong, but I do not think the direction and the pacing to this documentary was as strong in that last chunk versus the first half of the movie. So overall, you guys, Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain, is going to be one of those documentaries that will stick with you for a long time if you're a huge fan of Anthony Bourdain. However, I don't know if it's going to have that lasting appeal to it. There's not too much of a rewatchability factor here, and that's not a negative for the film, but what I'm saying is that nothing about this documentary is making me tell you right now, drop everything and go watch it, because it's that second half that just doesn't sit well with me. But yes, there are beautiful visuals here, and I do love a lot of the testimonies, and Anthony Bourdain as a human being, getting to know more about him was a treat in and of itself. And I will tell you that there's a lot I didn't know that went on behind the scenes for the show, so there's some appeal here for people who maybe just knew about his TV show on the surface level and nothing behind the scenes. So I would say that Roadrunner is a solid 3.5 out of 5, but as a lasting documentary, I don't necessarily think this is going to be lingering in my mind as 2021 goes on. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real review of Roadrunner, but I need to know what you have to say about the documentary down below in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And how did you feel about the documentary overall? And hey, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below. Subscribe to the channel and tap on that bell, y'all. Hit the thumbs up button, because let me tell y'all, we got a lot more coming, and I'm not even lying. There's so much happening this week. Space Jam and everything else. I mean, it's been so fun so far. Alrighty, again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.